Welcome back to today's video. Today in this video, I'm going to discuss 5 of the most frequently asked questions to me as an appraiser. And if you stick around to the end, I'm going to share something really important with you, so you're not going to want to miss that. We're going to jump into the video right now. Hey, I'm Rich, and if this is your very first time to the channel and you want to know everything there is to know about lifestyle, real estate, and new builds in Tucson, Arizona, then you've come to the right place. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the little bell notification so you can be the first to learn everything you want to know about Tucson, Arizona. Being a certified real estate appraiser and realtor for 15 years, I've had the pleasure of helping over 2,000 people buy or sell a home. We get calls and texts every single day from people just like you who are looking to make a move in Tucson, and we absolutely love it. So whether you're moving in one day or 1 year, you can call, text, email, or schedule a free Zoom consult, and I'm happy to help make your move smooth anywhere in Tucson. So let's jump into the 5 most frequently asked questions that I get as an appraiser from people just like you who are looking to buy or sell a home. Starting at number 1, the number 1 question that I get asked is, what can I do to improve my house to give it the most value? It's definitely a question that I think a lot of people are considering, whether it be renovating a kitchen, doing landscaping in the backyard, maybe doing an addition, remodeling, redoing flooring. People ask me all the time, is this gonna add value? Is the flooring gonna add value? Is the kitchen remodel gonna add value? If I remodel a bathroom, is that gonna add value? The short answer is yes. It's always gonna add value, almost always. There's very few exceptions. I guess the best way to think about it is really what's considered typical in your neighborhood. If you live in a neighborhood where the majority of your homes don't have any updates, and you're the only one that has done any updating, well, then the value that adds to your property is probably gonna be somewhat limited, because you're gonna be one of the only houses in the neighborhood that has been updated. There's just not gonna be a whole lot of market support that really pushes that value super high. On the contrary, if you happen to have a house that it needs a new kitchen, bathroom, flooring, and more of the houses in your neighborhood tend to have those things already done, the likelihood is high that those are going to be some of the items that improve the price of your property the most. So just to kind of specifically answer this question, it really depends on the neighborhood. If you live in a neighborhood where mainly bathrooms and kitchens are updated, then that's most likely going to be where your biggest bang for your buck is. If you live in a neighborhood where most of the backyards are nicely landscaped and yours isn't, then that's probably going to be an area where you can grab as much appreciation and as much value out of doing that landscaping as possible. The second most common question that I get as a real estate appraiser is, does a pool add value to my home? If I look at putting in a pool, is it gonna add value? And again, it's a little bit more complex, so I'll dive into this as simply as I can. The short answer is yes. If you build a pool in your backyard, you're going to see an increase in the value of your property overall. Now, I think where it gets harder to make the determination is it a dollar for dollar? Say you spend $60,000 on a pool, is it going to increase your property value by at least $60,000? Usually when people ask me a question like that, what they're really asking isn't, is it gonna add some value? Because the answer is, of course, it's gonna add some value. You could put a $60,000 pool in and it might add $30,000 worth of value. But I think what most people mean is it gonna be worth it? Like if I spend 60 grand on a pool, will it increase my value by at least 60 grand, maybe even more? The short answer, again, it depends. The best way to determine is what's common in your neighborhood. Typically, if you live in a neighborhood that does not have a whole lot of pools and you're the only house in the neighborhood that has pools, that's an indicator that it's probably going to be a diminished return. Meaning if you spend 60K on a pool, it's probably going to add something less than 60K. So whatever, and that's gonna vary depending on the market that you're in, how acceptable that particular feature is by the open market. So there's some additional complexities that go into that. And if you want to really know the answer to that, it's better to hire or speak to a real estate professional like myself who can really meet with you, consult, and dive into the numbers further. So something to consider is that when you build a pool, and this is specifically for people who don't have a pool currently, they own a house and they're considering building a pool. The best way to look at this is it's very rare, at least in our market in Tucson, Arizona, it's very rare that in the first 5 to 7 years, you see anything that you get a dollar for dollar return on what you spent on the pool. Now, that being said, the value of a pool typically is regarded as value in use, meaning the biggest value isn't going to be the financial value that you add to your home. It's going to be more of like the value in use, the weekend barbecues, being able to have your kids enjoy summers and have a cool place to hang out, family gatherings, enjoying it yourself. Like value in use is probably going to be your highest value for a pool. It's probably not going to be a value attributed to the price of your house. Now, that being said, there is something that it's kind of like depreciation on a car. When you install a pool, there's some substantial depreciation right off the bat. I've never seen an instance where someone builds a pool and it's a dollar for dollar recapture in their value within the first year. Usually it takes 5 to 7 years for the depreciation of that to happen versus the market value, or more. It's like the market appreciates and the value of the pool is already set because what you pay is set. So it takes a while for that appreciation to average over the next 5 to 7 years to really be able to get you a return on that pool as an asset. So short term, just to recap this one, short term, is a pool going to give you a dollar for dollar return? Almost certainly not, but it will give you a ton of value in use depending on your situation. So that's why it makes sense for a lot of folks. They're planning on being in a house for 5 to 7 years, and they know that this is going to provide a place for them and their family to enjoy their backyard and create memories. That's what money's for, right? At least that's what most people are thinking. Long term, I think a pool can be something that does give you a dollar for dollar return, or even something in excess of what the pool costs to put in. So make sure you understand both of those. Number 3, most common question that I get as a real estate appraiser is, how much does my view contribute to my value? Great question. And again, it's not black and white. Let's start with, does a view contribute value to your home? Short answer is yes. A view is a very attractive feature that most buyers value. Therefore, that's going to be something that typically, from an appraisal standpoint, we're going to see that reflected in the value that is determined, the value of the property that is determined as well. Now, as with anything, not all views are created equal. You might have a view, 360-degree view. That could be a superior view to something that, say, backs to a wash. Maybe you have a view of a wash, or maybe you have a view of some mountains way into the distance, but it's rooftops between, right at your back property line, it's rooftops, and then beyond that in the distance you can see some mountains. Versus unobstructed, you're on a hilltop, there's very few rooftops close to you. You can see them out in the distance, but you just see rolling hills, saguaros, trees, whatever you're looking at. Those two views are not created equal. So you're gonna see a difference in value in terms of the view as well. Generally speaking, it's gonna go back to the neighborhood. Like whatever neighborhood you live in, if there's a house that has a similar view, then whatever value or whatever price someone's willing to pay for that view is likely what your view would add to the property value of your home as well. Determining the actual dollar for dollar figure for a view, you would have to do a sales comparison approach to value, which is kind of an appraisal process of determining, hey, this one feature, what is this one feature of my home, like a view, how much is that allocated for based on the overall value of my property? So it's not something that you can just shoot from the hip on. There's definitely a lot of analysis and number crunching that goes into that. But the answer is, does a view add value to a home value? Yes, it does. Number 4, most common question that I get as a real estate appraiser is, does my neighbor's value determine my value? To a certain extent, the short answer to this is yes. Now, there is a caveat. Just because there are other homes in your neighborhood does not mean that they are the most comparable homes. And from a valuation perspective, as an appraiser, that's what we're looking at. We're looking at what is going to be deemed the most comparable. And location is just one of the many characteristics that we consider when we're talking about the value of a property. So just because a house is located in your neighborhood does not mean that it's one of the most comparable homes to compare to. And an example of that would be, oftentimes I see in neighborhoods, there's 1,500 square foot homes, and then sometimes there's like 3,000 square foot homes. Almost certainly, a buyer looking at a 1,500 square foot home is not also looking at a 3,000 square foot home. So you're talking about two completely different buyer demographics. Therefore, you're not going to use a 3,000 square foot home to compare to a 1,500 square foot home, even though they're in the same neighborhood. So you really are going to be looking at things in addition to just the location. So to answer this question directly, yes, your neighbor's property can influence your property value, but it doesn't necessarily, it's not automatically going to. It really depends on things in addition to how close it is. Like if it's similar in square footage, if it's similar in age, if it's similar in condition, if it's similar in upgrades, if it's similar in floor plan. So there's a ton of other things besides just, is it my neighbor's house? Is it in my neighborhood? There's a lot more to it than just that. All right, and the number 5 most common question that I get as a real estate appraiser is, should I pull permits when I'm doing additions to my house? I would say definitively yes. It is worth it to do additions when or to pull permits when you're doing additions to your house. And the reason why is because there is something called gross living area, which is really a valuation term, an appraisal term, but that's what banks, what lenders, what your local assessor is going to be looking at. So your gross living area is really the most valuable square footage of your property. So that is the improved livable area, heated and cooled, functional space. Now, technically, from a lot of different appraisal standards, if there is not a permitted, if the area is heated and cooled but not permitted, it doesn't check all of the boxes to be considered gross living area. And therefore you could do all of the work of doing the addition and have this beautiful thing, but if it's not permitted, it may not contribute the value that you thought it was going to the overall value of your home, which would be catastrophic. You spend all the time, all the money, all the energy, all of the processes that you go through to get your project completed. And then when you go to refinance, you go to sell, anything like that, you're stuck in the mud because all of a sudden you don't have permits and they're not recognizing that as a valid gross living area or as a valid addition. Therefore, it's not going to contribute the full amount of value as it would if it were stamped approval. Hey, this is approved. It's been built to code. It's meets all health and safety requirements. So just protect yourself. There is some leeway with this, a very minor little, caveat, which is if it's intended to be living area, that's where I would definitely suggest to get permits. If it's going to be living area, if you're adding a bedroom, if you're adding bathrooms, if you're adding a big addition where it's going to be heated and cooled living area as part of the main house or a guest house, if someone's going to be using it as livable space, I would highly suggest you get a permit. If it's going to be a carport, if it's going to be a storage building, if it's going to be a porch, I'll let you kind of make the determination there. But from an appraisal standpoint, I would say it's much less of a concern in terms of value. There you have it. You've got all the answers to your burning appraisal questions. And if you like this video, be sure to hit that thumbs up button and leave a comment with any questions that you might have for an appraiser. I'm gonna be making these videos about once a month, so I'll be sure to take a look at the comments and include it in the next video that I make. Oh, and be sure to hit that subscribe button as well. As always, I like to end these videos with a little bit of inspiration, and this week I've got something short and sweet for you, so here we go. Your speed does not matter, forward is forward. So take that in, and remember, whether you're moving in 1 week or 1 year, feel free to call, text, email, or schedule a free Zoom consult. I'd love to help make your move smooth here anywhere in Tucson. And until next time, we hope to see you around the neighborhood.